Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for tuning in to WKUF LP Plain 94.3. This is DJ Mo the Bro. I have two very special guests with me today. We'll start with Professor Ezekiel Gebissa. Professor Gebissa is a professor of social sciences at Kettering University. He received his PhD from Michigan State University and has taught multiple courses here. He's the author of Leaf of Allah, Thought and the Transformation of Agriculture in Ethiopia. Served as editor-in-chief of major academic journals, and has studied a lot of different areas very extensively. So today we'll be talking to him about that. Then I also have Dina Ahmed. She's a student of biochemistry here at Kettering. Dina is not only a smart student, she's also a big-time traveler. She travels a lot. She's been to China, Africa, Europe, so we'll get her input on that too. So let's start with Professor Gebissa. How are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing great.
Doing great? What has been keeping you busy these 2 days?
Well, my primary job is teaching, so that keeps me busy.
Mm-hmm.
I'm also involved in some activities.
Okay.
In making the voices of the voiceless heard, about some oppressive activities, land grab, social protests in the Horn of Africa.
Okay.
Trying to explain it to the world, what the cause is, what the reason for continued protest in the area.
Mm-hmm.
That is playing the role of a public intellectual, trying to explain to the world on media, but also trying to do something about it, that is to organize people in the diaspora to try to help people who are oppressed by governments in Africa. So I've been busy organizing conventions. Just got back from one in Washington, D.C. I'm also a president of a study organization here, so I am organizing a mid-year conference in Oslo.
Okay. That is sounds like a lot of work. Yes. What about you, Dina? What have you been up to?
So I'm co-oping at Hurley Medical Center currently as a scribe there. I think I'm on year 2 now,
Mm-hmm.
going up to the end of my second year there. And it's been great, I love working at the hospital. The doctors are great, and getting that experience before going to medical school has been great. And then just starting with the medical school application process.
That sounds exciting.
Super.
How do you find time to travel? How do you, a lot of people when they talk about traveling, they always think of 10 excuses before they do it. What makes you travel more? What excites you about traveling?
I guess just like everything about it is just so great. Well, the first time I ever traveled by myself, I was 14, and my dad sent me to France. I'd never been before, and he just sent me to go stay with a friend there, and I didn't know what I was doing and where I was going, and it was just a very eye-opening experience and a growing experience for me. And then ever since then, every time I travel, I learn something new about myself, and I think that's my favorite part about it, just like how I handle certain situations, how much I appreciate communicating with other people and learning from other people on my travels has been a great motivator in my drive to travel.
That sounds pretty cool.
Yeah.
What has been the best traveling experience thus far? What country?
That's a hard question. Study abroad, of course. I mean, everybody who studied
Europe?
abroad can definitely agree with me on that one, just because it was my first time ever being away from my family for that long.
Yes.
3 months living on my own. So I definitely grew more than I ever have in that 3 months.
Mm-hmm.
Like more in that 3 months that I have my whole college career, I would say, thus far. But my favorite experience was probably going to South Africa last summer for a volunteer.
What country was this?
South Africa.
Okay.
Yeah. I went to Cape Town, a suburb of Cape Town called Hope, and I was volunteering there teaching young students who wanted to become health professionals about different topics in medicine, and just helping them gain their confidence to go to secondary school and then on to medical school.
That is so neat. Yeah. Professor Gebissa, how old were you when you first traveled to a different country?
How old what?
How old were you when you went to a different country? In your early 20s?
Maybe I was 23.
What country was that you traveled to? Do you remember?
Russia.
Russia?
Yeah.
That was the first one.
That was the first one.
How was the experience?
It was surreal. I mean, it was my first flight. To
First
begin
flight?
with. Yeah.
And this is
Yeah.
during college, or?
No, I just finished college and I was working as a researcher in the Ethiopian National Archives.
Nice.
There was a conference in Moscow
Mm-hmm.
at the Patrice Lumumba University, and I sent in an abstract.
Okay.
I was surprised that it was accepted.
Nice.
So I traveled to Moscow, and that was an important experience. By that time, the communist regime was still in power, but Gorbachev had become the general secretary and has started his transformation of the system,
Okay.
perestroika and glasnost.
Right.
So it was just a very good experience to be able to see what Russia is, and
Right.
to travel from Moscow to St. Petersburg and to Yerevan. Yeah, it was just a good experience for me.
That
It's the
sounds
first one.
that sounds really fascinating. I guess my first travel was to America, at the age of 13. You know, a lot of learning, a lot of things happen to you, and then you learn about yourself in that whole process. So what I wanted to start this discussion off was talking about Africa. I was talking to catering students before this show, and I asked them, what do you think about Africa? And a lot of them had keywords like poverty, world hunger, and all these, political problems that they associate with that continent. How did you get interested in Africa as a whole? And because you just taught a class in Africa and global economy, I think that was the name, world economy.
Africa and the world economy.
Right. So, what interests you about Africa, and what do you think what are some of the insights that you have about Africa that a lot of people don't?
Well, I am an African in the first place.
What country did you grow up?
I was born in in Ethiopia.
Okay.
I studied history first, and
Okay.
I was interested in economics as well. But I also studied anthropology, so studying cultures and studying history. It became a profession. So I am an African. So identity is one thing, but also it's a field of study for me.
Right.
So,
And then you came to America, and were there some misconceptions that you thought Americans had about Africa that were just not true? Like, because I face that all the time, as being a Mohammedan in the U.S. I face that, and I feel like I'm not alone in because people just don't know a lot of the time. So, when you moved here, how was it?
I did not have any idea what it means. This is the late 1980s.
Okay.
Where I grew up, we didn't have global television like the CNN. So I really knew nothing about the United States.
Okay.
So arriving in Chicago,
Okay.
everything was disorienting.
Uh-huh.
I thought that I knew the English language.
Oh.
But the accent was so different from here. Even in my first course, when this guy, an African American from Kentucky,
Right.
I didn't understand what he was saying. I missed a lot of his contributions to the discussion because the way he speaks was completely different from
Really?
the standard English that I
Right.
knew. It was, I mean, even after like 8 years, I moved to Mississippi.
Oh, wow.
It was different.
Yeah.
So it was different. You don't quite understand when they say 5, you don't know what they mean. It means 5.
Right.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it was a culture shock. Today that doesn't happen because there is global television. You can watch CNN, you can watch the BBC, Al Jazeera. When I came here, Ethiopia was ruled by a communist regime that presented the United States as the devil.
Oh, wow.
The imperialist, the evildoer around the world.
Okay.
So it was different. It was a very different experience. I had no preparation for what I got myself into.
That sounds so. The communist versus the capitalist at that time. That Cold War era. So you started grad school here during that time?
That's correct.
So what were you studying? What subjects?
History and anthropology.
So it was like coming from a culture that, did not thought highly of us. How did you make a move to?
Well, you see, the communists remained in power by that time only for about 12 years.
Okay.
And prior to that, Ethiopia was the main ally of the United States during the Cold War.
Definitely.
The Americans left in, I guess, 1974, so the memory of the United States around the world was still important. Michael Jackson was still popular in Ethiopia, even though the government is saying that the United States is such a man-eater. That's the word that they used.
Man-eater, okay.
Yeah, the United States was still a trend in popular culture, in films. It's remote, but still, it's the ideal place.
Does that still continue to be the case?
In many ways, but the fact that there is now television and there is alternative media is changing attitudes around the world. But the United States is not just a country; it's an idea.
Right.
Historically, the United States is an idea that people had about a just government, the proper way of governance, better way of living as individuals. It was an idea. It's an idea of the Enlightenment.
Right. The American dream, yes.
The American dream came later on. The idea of the American dream was invented in 1932.
Okay.
We're talking about the idea, when I talk about idea, is the idea of the Enlightenment, attempted by the French but failed. But the United States was an experiment in how people should be governed, how economies should be structured, how people should live in liberty and peace, and be free to pursue happiness. That was an idea.
Right.
That was an idea put to experiment and succeeded in the United States over a period of time. So it's still the United States, the city upon a hill. It's still the standard bearer of human dignity, human freedom. That did not disappear even during the height of the Cold War. Everybody, even in the communist bloc, wanted to become like America. Look, human beings are born free, as Rousseau said, but they're in chains everywhere.
Who's that?
Rousseau.
Rousseau.
Yeah.
Is he
the French philosopher, an Enlightenment thinker again. Yeah, freedom, human freedom, is a desirable thing that people everywhere would want to be free. Free from violence, free from arbitrary arrest, and free to pursue their own goals.
It's interesting you talk about arbitrary arrest. The whole movement of Black Lives Matter and that whole social movement that is going on the last 2 years. Have we deviated from that as a country? Or is that like too early to assume? Because it feels like for a while, when I moved to America 9 years ago, racism was a word that we used to, hear, but never felt. I was never isolated in any way. And then with this election, you saw a lot of racial tensions, and then the travel ban, and then things of that sort. Is that all because of social media? I feel like the fact that Black Lives Matter has become such a powerful movement, and the subject of racism is emerging. Is that because everybody has a voice?
If you look at the long history of the United States, you see progress, but that progress has not been linear.
Right.
There are times that it's like a pendulum. Sometimes you go back, sometimes you forget the ideal of the country that all men are created equal. But generally, the trajectory is one of progress. There are times that there are backlashes against progresses that you make. Some people who lose out rebel against the progress that we make. But as a general historical matter, there's a lot of progress in the United States. There are times that you go back, backlash.
Nice.
There are times when people have the license to be discriminating. They feel like like today. As one philosopher, thinker in the United States now said, there is what is known as license to immorality. Like
Okay.
just to say, I have voted for Obama once, I'm not a racist. So if I discriminate against you, I'm not a racist because I voted for Obama
Oh,
once.
definitely. I hear that.
I'm not racist. I have black friends.
Yes.
People
Yes.
say that all the time, yeah.
So Dina, being born in the U.S. and then traveling to Africa, how was the experience? First time you went, or the second time you went?
Well, like when I was younger, I didn't really like understand. I was just going to see my grandma and my grandparents and
Family.
So I like wasn't really aware of all of the social issues and the tensions that were going on with the government at the time. But now that I'm older, I still definitely don't know as much as I probably should, considering I'm originally from Sudan and my parents are from Sudan. A lot of my family lives there.
Mm-hmm.
But you can definitely see that the difference between the way we live our lives in America and the way they live in Sudan. Like there's lots of unrest and just in everyday things, like just when you go to the university, protests every single day, university closes and then it's closed for like a month and then they don't know when it's going to open again, and it's just crazy to think that they're living afraid of their government every day or unhappy with their government. And here, yes, we may be unhappy with the way it is right now, but like you said, there's been progress over time and we've grown to be appreciative of our government and the way America has grown, I guess.
So it's not. So when you go back, there is a difference that you definitely feel.
Definitely. And like I don't know much about the tension between North and South, but from what I know,
Neither does a lot of our audience, so you're good.
But you can definitely see like how manipulative and corrupt some governments can be, especially overseas where money is power.
Mm-hmm.
And if you have money, you can basically do anything. Even like as a citizen in the country, if you have money, you can just pay off the police in any situation. But if you don't, then you're.
That is as true of like my country, Pakistan. There's money buys a lot of things. Professor Gebissa, like somebody who has studied Africa more than a lot of general populace. When you think of Africa, what do you think of? What are some of the words that pop in your head?
A huge continent. It's about 1 billion people today. It's not the safari that people think about or the bottomless pit of American or Western charity. Today, Africa is on the rise. This might come as a surprise to many people. About 7 or 8 fastest growing economies in Africa, in the world, are in Africa. Africa has the last arable land to feed the world.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, the most reserve arable land in the world are in Africa, and that's why you see this land rush from China, from the Middle East, and from everywhere to lease land and grow food and export them. Africa has untouched mineral resources that are going to be very important for the technological changes that are fueling economies and economic activities around the world, like cobalt that you use in your cell phone.
Right.
Africa has a lot of energy deposit, both renewable and non-renewable fossil fuel. The United States gets some of its oil from Nigeria, from Angola, and there are many countries that are oil rich. That doesn't mean that it translates to development for Africans. And
that was going to be my next question.
Yeah, it doesn't mean that because there is corruption, as you said. The benefit of growth, the benefit of economic growth is not often distributed widely. There are challenges of governance, violations of human rights. Where there is conflict, where there is resource, there is always conflict. There is what is known in the social science the resource curse. That is to say, countries that have resources are less accountable and more corrupt and more inequality. So Africa has all those problems, but it has also promises because of the opportunities for growth. Because there has not been any growth in Africa for many, many years, the room to grow into is larger than anywhere in the world.
Interesting. So I guess Africa is one of the continents that the world looks towards for the future. It has a lot of untouched resources. It has a lot of potential, a lot of opportunity for growth. Um, what about, let's switch some gears. What about China and the rise of China? Dina, when you visited China, how was it? Because a lot of people in the U.S. have not gone to that country, but our misconception, perception of China usually ends up being a communist country. People aren't that free, cheap labor, um, all of those negative perceptions. How was it for you as a Westerner?
I mean, I definitely was not there for that long, and I was
Mhm.
there as a tourist, so I saw the tourist side of things. But it's a very culturally rich country for sure, and I mean, people seemed happy just by the way that like their interactions with each other, and just like my interactions with Chinese like people of Beijing, which is capital. So I definitely wasn't in Shanghai, which is where a lot of like the economic growth is in the country and
Definitely.
what it's known for.
Hmm.
But um, as a whole, I mean, I had a great experience there.
Yes.
I don't know, like did lots of touring. I mean, I can't.
Was it
say
as good
much
as
about.
Europe?
Um, it's different. It's just
Um,
different. They're
yes.
both great, very different.
Yes.
I don't think they're very comparable. I wouldn't say.
When was the first time, Professor Gebissa, that you visited China?
2011.
11, okay. How was your experience there? Were you there to visit like Dina, or were you actually there for a conference? Or
I was an Oswald Fellow.
okay,
I taught at the Dalian University of Technology in northeast China for a couple of months.
wow,
But I did travel. I did travel almost all over China, especially where um, the Chinese economy experienced growth. That is, all the way from the northeastern part through Beijing, through Shandong, and Jiangsu province, that is where Shanghai is, but also all the way to Shenzhen,
okay.
that is northeast of Hong Kong.
Hmm.
So I have really seen most of the areas that experienced growth over the last 70 years. But look, China in the 19th century was the largest and most prosperous country. It declined after the invasion, the mid 19th century. It fell to the communists in 1949, experienced tremendous hardship under communist rule in the 1950s, the Great Leap Forward, and then the Cultural Revolution, which together ended up killing about 50 million Chinese.
Exactly.
So the growth that we see in China is the result of the reforms that were instituted uh, in the late 1970s by Deng Xiaoping. It's in the last 40, 30 years that really China experienced this kind of economic growth. Look, there is a baseline in China. In the 1970s, the per capita income was $40. Today, it's 9,000. So you can see the
Wow,
difference.
that's a lot of growth.
Right. In the 1970s, if you asked the Chinese what the durable goods that they would have liked to have, it would be a wristwatch and a bicycle and a sewing machine.
Okay.
That's basically what the Chinese would see as the Chinese dream.
What about today?
Well, today they own cars. The per capita income, as I say, had grown. China, collectively, has prospered. There are, of course, still pockets of growth, especially in the interior, but the government is aware of it. They call it this. They're trying to bridge the gap between what they call the dual economy of the coastal and southern area.
Okay.
That benefited from the comparative advantage the Chinese have in labor
Hmm.
and the growth in manufacturing in that area because of investment from abroad, because of this cheap labor. But their economy is planned. They have a 75-year plan, and they have
Wow.
10-year plan with change of governments. This is all designed by Deng Xiaoping.
And who's
And
this personality?
he was the leader of China. He did not have a position in the Communist Party except that he was the supreme leader. He was a very pragmatic leader.
What time was this?
This is in the late 1970s after Mao Zedong died.
Wow. Yes.
So Deng Xiaoping became the supreme leader, even though he was not the Secretary General of the Communist Party, but he really is the founder of modern China. So it's in 1979 that he started in Shenzhen. This is just in southern China.
Okay.
The city that was just marshy land in 1979 today has about 5 million residents and the fifth largest stock exchange in the world.
Wow.
So the Communist Party, especially after the 1990, I think it's 1989, the Tiananmen Square, after that, China started to experience growth year after year at the rate of more than 10% for 30 years.
Wow.
That means the Chinese economy's doubled every 7 to 8 years. Today, China is arguably the largest economy. I'm not sure that it had surpassed the United States, knows, but it's the second largest economy. As I said, there were no decent hotels in China in the 1970s for Westerners to go. But today, China, in every city, and you've probably seen it in Shanghai, it's one of the most developed port systems, rail systems. University graduates, they spend a lot of money on research and development. They build roads, and they have no democratic debates about whether to build roads or not.
Yes.
So they connect not only in China, within China itself, but they're connecting by building railroads all the way to Europe, the Silk Road,
Wow.
and connecting Southeast Asia to the Chinese economy. It's a very confident place, a well-run place. The Communist Party is not the Communist Party of the 1970s, where it was governed by party apparatchiks. Today, the Communist Party leaders are technocrats, very well-educated people in the West or anywhere else they could find education. They know their priorities. It's a top-down governance system. It's a top-down planning, but China is a power to reckon with, militarily, economically,
Yes.
in every aspect, even in the area where the United States has advantages, like in aerospace.
Okay.
The Chinese now build their own regional jets, Shenyang. So it's still a very authoritarian place, but it is not where you just fear for your life every single day. Yet you can feel secure. You can go places. See, the social contract with Deng Xiaoping is wealth is glorious, is what he's saying.
Wealth is glorious.
Yeah, wealth is glorious. Say that don't mess with politics, but you're free to pursue economic activities, to improve your own lot. And that's the social contract between the Chinese government, the Communist Party, and the people. That is, do whatever you want to do.
Right.
But don't interfere in politics. Look, for people who lost about 40 million people who just lost their lives in the 1960s under Mao Zedong, this was a great deal, and they took it.
That is really interesting. You mentioned the 75-year plan that they have in place, and they go by 5 to 10-year long-term, short-term goals. So, as a society, how do you think that long-term? Like, do we in U.S. have a plan like that? Or does our plan change every 8 years with new?
The United States is a free market economy. They don't plan. Planning. It's not a planning economy. You don't plan. It's the free market that determines the direction, the speed, and the activities of investment, trade, and everything. So it should be left to the invisible hand to determine growth. The Chinese have goals. They say we're going to get this number of roads built, kilometers built. They plan and try to achieve it. So it's a very different context, but they still follow the market economy. It's called command economy or state capitalism. They play by the rules of the market, but within the context of planning.
That is very interesting to know, because people always compare U.S. to China for some reasons, and there are so many different facets to that argument that you cannot compare these two countries. Different economies, a lot more people in China as well. I guess compared to U.S. is 3 times bigger. And when you landed in China, did you feel communism at all? Was there any difference?
I didn't feel the communism, no.
Right.
I mean, I think
It's not a bad thing. I'm just
but like I think I did have that expectation going into like the trip, and I like had all I knew about China was what I learned in history class and about Mao and communism and totalitarianism and all of that stuff. But going there, you don't feel it. Like everybody's happy, people are happy doing what they're doing. Nobody talks about politics. Nobody like you said, no one talks about politics. It's not really a problem there. There's no like in the past propaganda and posters. Now looking back, like that's what it is. But they don't have that, and it's just everyone's going about their business, their daily lives. They're running their shops and markets and whatnot. But you don't feel it as an outsider.
Definitely.
Looking in, for sure.
The point you made about technocrats ruling as the ruling government, how does that make any difference? Is that a big deal? Because in U.S. you definitely don't see that. We don't have many technocrats in the government. Does that change?
Yeah. One thing about feeling
Yes.
the communist in
Go ahead.
China,
Yeah.
I think you do feel some of the restrictions. For instance, you cannot access Facebook.
Yeah.
Oh yes.
Okay?
Let's talk about that.
So you do feel some.
Experience some of that.
Right, you can experience some of that. That if you're flying from Seoul to Beijing or somewhere, you can feel the restrictions. It's not that much. They have Weibo,
It's
their
very
own.
it's very subtle.
Yeah, they have their own Facebook equivalent. They have their own Gmail type equivalent. They have their own Twitter.
Right.
It's not connected to the rest of the world. So you can feel the restrictions even in China. But you say something about technocrats. I think the United States government has a bureaucracy. Administrations change. Administrations change and priorities change.
Okay.
But the civil service in the United States remains. So the technocrats always remain in place, except that the secretaries, the assistant secretaries, the upper echelon of the political appointees change.
Yes.
So priorities change, but the civil service, the bureaucracy, remains in place. For the Chinese, the difference is that they did not have that kind of competent civil service. Under Mao, the civil service or the bureaucracy was run by political cadres.
Yes.
Those who implement the official line. These are not competent people who make policies or who implement policies on the basis of their abilities and their capacities. But that changed in the started to change in the 1980s after the reform. Look, Deng Xiaoping groomed 3 generations.
3 generations.
3 generations of leaders.
Wow.
3 generations of leaders that would take over every 10 years. When he left, honestly, speaking, after the Tiananmen Square, Jiang Zemin was president. Zhu Rongji was the prime minister, and these 2 people actually designed the change. Deng Xiaoping thought that Zhu Rongji, he called him, he knows economics.
Wow.
So he is really the person that put in place this economic plans.
Yes.
That actually revolutionized the Chinese economy. 10 years later, they were replaced by a group, men who were in their 40s. By the way, they're men mostly.
Okay.
Who were in their 40s when these guys who were in their 50s took over. When they get to the 60s, the whole class changes.
Yes.
So Jiang Zemin and Zhu Rongji were replaced by Hu Jintao, the former president, Hu Jintao, and Wen Jiabao. These were engineers and geologists. They were not from the traditional place where Chinese leaders came, Anhui. This guy actually came from 40 miles outside Beijing.
Okay.
It's a city the size of Detroit, but is one of the industrial heartland.
Wow.
The man actually grew up in this context, so he really understood I mean. He understood economics. Once they were replaced, their time ended after 10 years. They were replaced by another group led by Xi Jinping, the current president, and Li Keqiang.
Okay.
Li Keqiang is from Dalian, by the way. Dalian, the city where I was.
Yes.
And he was a party secretary of Liaoning province. They've done a lot of things when they were party officials and technocrats at the lower level. So when they get to the Beijing as members of the Central Committee of the Communist Party,
Okay.
these people have accumulated tremendous experience in different sectors of the economy. Some have distinguished themselves in their knowledge and practice of agriculture, others in energy, others in manufacturing, others in aerospace engineering, others in education. That's what I meant by technocrat. These are able people with great experience to manage the economy. And they have shown that they could manage the economy of China. I mean, there are many measures that I could speak about.
Right.
Why the Chinese economy is on solid ground.
Wow. So how does the Communist Party pick this talent? Do they do it like U.S.? I'm sure they don't because it's communist. How do they get the best talent?
Like I said, he groomed 3 generations, 10 years apart.
Wow.
A group comes in, they remain in place for 10 years with different priorities.
Okay.
For instance, for Jiang Zemin, here was the challenge. China grew so much that they surpassed their ability to produce energy resources to continue to fuel their economy.
Right.
What the Chinese were able to produce inside China in terms of production of fossil fuel lagged behind their energy. So in 1994, 95, I think, Jiang Zemin went to Africa looking for energy supplies. That's where the Chinese venture or the Chinese engagement of Africa actually started. The Chinese exhausted their resources. They were growing so fast. They were growing so fast that they needed to go out. In fact, that's what they said, going global.
Going global.
And the place they went to is not the Middle East. The Middle East was in chaos in the 1990s after the Iraq invasion. The United States felt at that time they had won the competition with global communism. Mm-hmm. In fact, a political scientist, wrote this book called The End of History.
Yes.
In which he predicted, that's Francis Fukuyama, predicted that the rest of the world is going to follow the United States as a democratic capitalist society in which the free market and free elections or free political competition, free economic competition rules everywhere. The United States did not understand the Chinese were doing a whole lot, not only in Africa, but behind their backs in the American hemisphere, in Latin America, in Australia. So after 9/11, when the United States woke up to the realities of the world, the Chinese had become the 3rd largest economy after Japan.
Wow.
So the largest economy is the United States, then Japan, and then China.
Yes.
By then, they had stretched their tentacles to every part of the globe, looking for resources, energy resources, timber, cement. By the middle of the 2000s, for example, half of the world production of cement, half of what the world produced went to China.
Because they were developing.
Building.
Definitely.
They were building roads. They were building
construction.
I mean, you can speak of the airport, for instance. You go to Beijing. If you leave from Washington, you would see the difference. So if you leave from, this is very modern. The railroad in southern Beijing that connects to the rest of southern China is just an amazing piece of architecture and engineering So you can see the difference.
You can. Even just compared to Europe too, the railway system in China surpasses any other that I've ever seen, for sure.
The railway system of China is impressive. So I was reading Henry Kissinger when he visited China in 1970s, I believe. And I think I remember him saying, it was a documentary, and he said, China, that era, I could have never predicted how China is today. So did we just underestimate China by a lot? We were not even, because right now, you see the political bureaucracy of U.S., and there aren't many grounds that we consider China as a threat. And for for a long time, we just did not do that. Was that because China was smarter than us in some ways? They just ignored. They were able to um, just do the things behind our back. Do you think that is? Did we underestimated them? Underestimate them?
Of course, the West underestimated them. But here is what Deng Xiaoping said to his followers, I mean the younger Communist Party leaders. He said, "Bid your time. Don't assume global leadership. Build your capabilities, and never say we're going to rule the world."
Wow.
Look, China was growing, benefiting from Western investment. At the same time, did not want to take any responsibility about maintaining order and peace in the world.
Yes.
That was still done by the United States. Sea lanes are not protected by China.
Yes.
It's the American naval fleet that is protecting the seas. That's what it is. But the Chinese took advantage of it, as many take advantage, but not today. Today, China spends about a third of what the United States spends on the military.
Okay. That is still a lot.
They could shoot, and they've demonstrated that they could shoot a satellite out of orbit.
Mm-hmm.
That kind of accuracy and capability they have shown. They have built what is called aircraft carrier battle group.
Yes.
They have won. The United States had, I think, about more than 20, but they have won.
Yes.
The Chinese are capable. The Chinese are well run, and that, as I cannot emphasize enough, that they are well run as a government. They control everything. The people are not free. Now, they have other problems because they are growing so much at a very fast speed. Their social institutions and protective institutions have not developed as fast. Education, the control of population, urbanization, the problems of growing urban areas, all of these have not been developed to the extent that their economic growth warrants. They have problems, environmental problems, social problems, but economically and politically, this is a well-managed state.
Very nice. So you also mentioned you taught in China for a few months. How was Chinese universities different from American universities? Was there a big difference, or overall the academia side of the world was pretty much the same?
I don't know how to answer this in a politically correct way.
I see. Try your best.
Because without offending my students, I think the Chinese students are more serious. They take their education very seriously.
Yes.
I mean, China is also a Confucian society, so they're respectful of people and seniors, and they understand order. They take their assignments very seriously. They don't take anything for granted.
That's a good point. That's what in Pakistan it used to be like that. You respect your teachers to the max, and I remember. I mean, we used to also get beat up when we didn't do our homework. That was pretty common, but that also led to a lot of respect for the teachers. I remember when I first moved to U.S. It was at the end of 8th grade, and I remember a student, professor is just giving the lecture, geometry class. The student just walks out, goes to the bathroom, comes back, sits back, and I was like, that was such a big thing for me. I was like, that never happens. So for me, I noticed that big time. There were many times when students would just like come to class with their headphones in and just sit there, and There were times when the teacher would stop them. But many times the teachers were like, it's your call kind of thing. Whereas in Pakistan, no, you don't. You don't even think of those things.
Yeah, I even noticed that just from like the way I was raised. My parents always taught me to like respect my teachers more than anyone else. Like they're teaching me, like helping me grow as a person.
Yes.
And then I never realized until I went to Sudan and like was in school there for a while, just like for the summer. Like I'd go to like
Yes.
classes with my cousins. But the respect students there had for their teachers was on a completely different level than I've ever experienced here in the U.S. for sure.
That is a very interesting point.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's something to think about here in the U.S.
I think Kettering students are still respectful, very respectful of their teachers.
That's good to know.
I was just speaking generally as a culture. Kettering would be an exception. I think students are respectful of it. It's a different culture, though. The Confucian idea is what's more important is order rather than individual right.
Right.
It's different here. The right of the individual is more important than the right of the collective. So that's the Asian values, which is different from the Western values.
Yes.
Okay. That's what I was referring to. But in terms of education, the planning aspect of it is important. The Chinese plan how many students should graduate in engineering degrees, in the type of engineering degrees. It's not the market that decides. They plan, they determine. These are state universities mostly that they have. They fund them. Because they fund them, they determine the number of students that go into any program. So that's what I mean by planning, that they really plan everything.
So if they don't have enough students for a program, they make sure they have enough students.
Yes.
Enough students depending on the demands of the economy.
Oh, okay.
If they need more chemical engineers, they make sure that they have enough chemical engineers. If what they're involved in is construction, they make sure that they have enough civil engineers. So they plan. I think they put out about 7 million university graduates, mainly as engineers and scientists. They emphasize those STEM fields than other fields, because it's a growing economy. Now, the rate of growth has slowed down.
Yes.
But that should be expected, because when you take off and growing, you could grow at a very high speed.
Definitely.
But once you plateau, it becomes routine, and the rate of growth.
Are they getting
slows
close
down.
to plateauing, or is that not?
This is what they call the dual economy. The areas of the coastal areas, east, south, the northern Beijing, Shanghai, Jiangsu, and Hunan, and Guangdong.
Yeah.
These are the areas that actually benefited from the 30-year growth.
Okay.
The interior of China is still basically a third world country. What they're trying to do is they're trying to shift from the export-oriented economy to generating domestic demand for their manufacturing. So they have a balanced economy, in an economy that is broad-based within China and is driven by consumer demands within China itself. That they're trying to correct. As I said, they still have lots of problems.
Yes.
8,000 or 9,000 per capita income compared to 52,000 in the United States. They have ways to go to get to that point. But they have a huge economy and about 1.4 billion people, a huge market. So they have some inbuilt advantages, but they have also some difficulties that they have to surmount.
That's a very good point. We keep talking about global and how Chinese looked at Africa, and like everything feels so connected. How does China look at globalization in general? Like, how do they think about other countries in the world in terms of their economic growth? Because you made a comment that they were like, we're not going to be the world's police. We'll just mind our own business. So how do they are still growing at a rapid rate and making a pretty good economic growth?
I think when we say globalization, what we're talking about is technology, technology in communication and transportation, and the speed with which we can make financial transfers.
Yes.
The Chinese benefited from the one comparative advantage that they have, that is cheap labor.
Cheap.
Yeah, cheap labor. Now, this is important for American listeners, that textile, jeans, for instance, is an American invention.
Yes.
States like North Carolina benefited from textile. That's what the industry was. And there were many people that were employed in South Carolina. But it wasn't that the textile industry went to Southeast Asia, which is China in particular, because of cheap labor and the ability to transport that back to the United States. A lot of people in the United States actually lost their jobs, and they were not readily employable without upgrading their skills. So for many in the United States, globalization has had a very negative effect.
Definitely.
It's a matter of anxiety. It's a matter of planning.
Yes.
That is to say, the kind of jobs that the Chinese took away, it actually started in Mexico, the maquiladora. What they lost is not going to come back to the United States. It will never come back, because even in China, and this is important because of the Africa connection,
Right.
textile, which the Chinese started to take away from the eastern part of United States, they're now going to Africa.
Okay.
The lower end of manufacturing, like textile, are going to Africa, because the wage in China itself is rising to the extent that they have moved up the chain.
Big insight.
Yeah, they're manufacturing other things rather than textile. Everything, I think you can just look at what you're carrying.
Yes.
Your gadgets. It's China. China is manufacturing higher end products. They're moving up the chain to aerospace, as I said earlier, aerospace. So the Chinese economy is growing, wages are growing, the comparative advantage that they had with labor is diminishing. So it's going somewhere else. In the United States, what needs to be done is the comparative advantage that the United States has. That's in the knowledge economy. Skills in designing, in software engineering, in all what is known as the knowledge or information-based economy.
Right.
But to prepare for that, what you need to do is upgrade the skills of your people through education and training. If you do more of that in terms of innovation, the United States has a huge comparative advantage that the Chinese don't have, that the Japanese don't have, that the Europeans don't have. And to that, this would be some kind of creates an anxiety too, that immigration is a net plus for the United States. Immigration is the advantage that the United States has, because immigrants fuel the economy. And this could be unpopular in this age and day, but that's a fact. Studies after studies have proven that. These are comparative advantages that the United States has. So those who lost their jobs to comparative advantages that the Chinese and Southeast Asians had,
right,
they're lost. They're gone. You can retrain them. They could do some other things, but they're lost. The United States needs to move up the chain to the knowledge economy, innovation economy.
Jobs are gone.
Manufacturing jobs are gone. Now, manufacturing is back in the United States. It's back because of automation. That means they're not going to employ people. Manufacturing is back. There is a growing manufacturing sector in the United States, but it's not employing human beings. It's automation that is bringing back manufacturing. Now, for you to be able as a human being to be employable, you should be able to man that knowledge economy. That you should be very highly sophisticated, skilled person to find jobs even in the manufacturing economy that is growing.
So I shouldn't rely on the presidential candidates to tell me that they'll bring jobs back. Is that bringing the concept of bringing jobs back? Like, are jobs, I guess a better way of saying that, are jobs determined by political leaders or are jobs determined by the economic forces?
I think in the United States, it's a non sequitur to argue that, hey, our economy should be free, should be market driven, and at the same time saying that what the government does grows the economy. I think policies create an environment.
Okay.
An environment in which people could innovate, uh, could work.
Mhm.
But you cannot take credit for what the private sector does. Not so much, at least, not totally no effect, but um, it's kind of there is a disconnect between saying it's the economy, the marketplace that determines everything, and on the say at the same time saying that I will bring back jobs. How are you going to do that if it's a free market? You're going to order people to bring it back. You could give them some incentives, like tax breaks, to bring them back. But I think what derives the economy today is not its technology, it's technological innovation. Um, so it's the innovation economy that is available in the United States for jobs and services and employment, but not bringing back the old jobs. How many people brought the old jobs back?
Yeah, you can see how social media plays a big part in this too, because like just even all over Facebook, like you see all those ads for like the free coding classes and like the
Yes.
3-month quick coding class. You can learn how to design a web page and how to code so many different things, websites and all that stuff. It's become so easily accessible now for anyone to learn like anything like
Anyone with a
software
computer.
engineering. Anyone with a computer can learn how to code a website and then like
So-
work in like in the STEM fields and innovation and in turn manufacturing.
Yeah, one recent paper I read was by Peter Drucker, Managing Oneself. Beautiful piece. Have you read it?
I've read his leadership writings,
Mhm.
not the one that you're mentioning.
Yeah, and that he like really was talking about what you were saying mostly about having skills, because his argument was a lot of organizations, a lot of companies that people are employed some backup skills that you can deploy right away. Like if you work in the morning from 8 to 4, go home and learn something else on the side. So when at the age of 45, the whole industry is going down and you need to find a new job, you should be able to get in it really quick. Double down on your strengths. And it was a very well written paper. I think it was written in 99. But today, I mean, I'm graduating in 3 days. And reading it was pretty helpful. And one of the social science professors actually recommended that. So that was really useful. Um, I really want to have your opinion on the immigration ban. So you said immigration is one of the comparative advantages that U.S. has. So the fear factor in U.S. right now about immigration, about the Middle East, and banning those 7 countries. How did you look at that? Was it a big deal even, or it wasn't? No, didn't even matter as a social scientist or political scientist.
If the rationale for the Muslim ban, they say it's not a Muslim ban, from 6 countries now, not 7. If that is about security, it's about protecting Americans. One study showed, or some guy from, I guess from Harvard, or I don't know, I don't remember that, but it had a study on how many people actually from those countries traveled to the United States and committed an act of terrorism from those 7 countries. Can you guess how many?
None.
0.
Yes.
I read
Okay.
that.
0. So if it is a matter of security threat, about protection of Americans, there is no basis for it. There is no empirical study that showed that persons from those countries actually committed crime. What they say is one more thing. What they say at the time is that these are countries that are failing states or failed states.
Iran was one of them.
Iran is not a failed state. It's a very well-run place.
Definitely.
Iraq could be a very well-run place. Now it's taken off, but it was destabilized by the invasion.
Yes.
Uh, so I mean, there are other countries that could have been a security threat, but you can't stop this. By the way, if people want to commit terrorism, they will find a way.
Yes.
Okay? They will find a way. I think um, the courts have seen it for what it is, and it's just like the immigration from the south, that building a $10 billion wall from
Yes.
California to the Gulf of Mexico. Some studies show that it would cost the United States about $40 billion.
Yes.
But in the last 5 years, more Mexicans have gone down to Mexico than Mexicans coming up to the United States. So there is no empirical basis for these policies. They are all policies based on fear for political um, purposes.
Dina, how do you see those?
I
As
would
a
agree
student.
100%.
Yes.
I'd agree 100%. Like I have many, I'm Sudanese originally, so I have many Sudanese
That was
friends
one of
and
the
family.
countries.
And being of one of the biggest Sudanese communities in the United States, I think Sudanese in Flint specifically have made such a big contribution to the healthcare field. Like majority of the clinics in the area are run by Sudanese doctors. And like, what
Definitely.
would we do without them serving the underserved community? Because all the other doctors are all specialists and they require. I have met so many Sudanese doctors and Syrian doctors and
Yes.
doctors from these countries who take in patients that don't have insurance, who aren't able to pay for like hospital like bills and their visits to the doctor, and they provide them with that. And I think Flint is a great example of how immigrants have helped like helped the like community grow and have become very good resources like for our country as a whole. This is just one example. Like I don't even know about like the rest
That
of
is
the
such a
country.
good point. Definitely. Our show is coming to an end, so I have a last question for you, Professor. Um, in this knowledge economy that you're referring to, as college students who are graduating, what advice do you have for those students who are getting in the work field? Or, like, do you think specialized skills actually matter? Or should we just walk in? I don't even know how to phrase this question. Like, any advice that you have,
I'll be biased
please be.
because I'm a social scientist. Technical skills are important.
Okay?
And I think graduates from Kettering University or American universities, in the technical aspect of your skills,
Mhm.
you're competent. Um, for Americans or American students is what they don't have, and what industries are always telling universities is social skills, uh, cultural knowledge, um, taking risks.
Yes.
But look, you started with this idea of globalization.
Mhm.
Globalization is also about the movement of to be able to navigate through different cultures.
Yes.
One of the things that is advantageous to some African countries are, if you're, for instance, from Cameroon, you already speak the French language, you learned it in Cameroon, and if you're educated in the United States, you speak English, and maybe have picked up some Spanish.
Middle school.
Yeah. So many of these people that are, they call the black diamonds, very skilled people who have worked for American industry, they go back to Africa, and they can easily travel through these cultures from Africa to Europe to America.
Okay.
That's important. Learn many languages.
Yes.
One of the markers here is that people only speak one language. If it is a global, it's a global society.
Globalization, yes.
Yeah, and if it is the Earth is flat, as Friedman said,
Yes.
then you should be able to navigate through these cultures, speaking different languages and understanding different cultures. This is the global economy. It's a knowledge economy. That's what you need. It's not only the technical aspect, that you should be able to compete with people from India, from China, from Africa as well. That's number one. Number two, usually people go to Europe for experiences. Go somewhere else. Europe is not very different from the United States. Gain skills and knowledge of cultures elsewhere, not the usual suspects. Be adventurous. Go to Africa and other places and look for opportunities where others are not looking for.
Tina, what do you have to say about that?
I mean, I agree. I mean,
That is-
there's a reason.
That is so profound.
It really is.
Be adventurous. Don't go. Yes, because when you think about traveling, here in Michigan, a common place for vacation is Florida or up north, and Cancun. A lot of people are not very adventurous, and I think we're missing out on something because we shouldn't fear globalization. A lot of people fear global. Like right now, there's so many different fears in our society, and that's just one of them. And globalization is bad, and this and that. But then at the end of the day, we all use Samsung Galaxy phones and iPhones.
And I
And
feel like a big part of that, like overcoming that fear, is putting yourself in uncomfortable situations and realizing that a lot of other people are in the same boat as you are,
yes.
and not everyone is out to get you. Like
Right.
everyone is going through life together, and you can only learn from each other and help each other get through it.
I guess to conclude this show, I think one point I would make is that there are economic/social forces in the world that you, as an individual, cannot control. So sometimes it's better to just go with the flow, really learn. Because if globalization is actually happening, then you have to understand that I'm competing for jobs against software engineers from China, India, because companies like Google aren't afraid, to hire somebody from China or India if they have better skills than I do. So now we have to be more competent and spend our energy on becoming more competent rather than fearing that. And I think with that is my last show at Kettering University. I would really like to thank you, Professor Gebissa.
And one more thing.
Go for it.
I'm an immigrant.
You are.
And I'm attracted to the United States, remained in the United States, not for its economic benefits, but because of the right to be left alone.
Okay.
Freedom. That I'm not bothered by the government or by my neighbors. I could do whatever I want to do. That freedom is a commodity that the United States could sell around the world. That's your comparative advantage.
We got a quick question for you from our audience. Somebody said, but isn't Europe a good intro to traveling for Americans?
It's a stopover.
Just stopover? Yes. So if you want to do that and travel to other countries, because a lot of Americans, a lot of people here, born and raised here. And if I didn't leave Pakistan, I would have been the same way, born and raised and lived my entire life in that country. But Europe is like the first place people think of.
And I have traveled throughout Europe, Western Europe, Eastern Europe. I know this place. But yeah, for America, you go to Asia or Africa, it's a stopover. It shouldn't be a destination.
Europe, because it's not that different from our society here.
Eastern Europe is a little different.
A little more different.
Yes.
Just a little bit, but it's becoming also westernized. I was in Poland in August last year, so I've traveled to all continents.
Yes.
All continents except Australia. I have been to all of the everywhere.
Goals.
Yeah, Latin America, the Americas, Europe, Asia.
Have you been to Cuba?
No, I haven't. I've been open,
Yes.
But I might next summer or so. Now that it's open. No, I haven't. But I know Cubans. I know about Fidel Castro. He was an icon in the 1960s, an anti-imperialist crusader, a man who slaughtered the dragon. But no, China, I know a little bit about Cuba, but not there.
Yes. So you've traveled a lot.
I have traveled a lot, and I'm still traveling.
What is
I
your
just
next?
told you that next on the 29th of tomorrow, I go to Boston. And come back on the 29th. I travel to Oslo, to London, and then Oslo to Switzerland, Bern, Switzerland, and stop over in Munich, Germany, and then back in London before I get back in 18 days.
Question for you. So, how do you finance all that? How does one get those opportunities to travel?
You mentioned one of my books. I have several other books. So when you write something, you become an expert. You become the go-to person. And I get invited by universities. Tomorrow I go to Brandeis because I was invited, so they pay for it.
Very nice.
So
Takeaway, guys. That is such a good point. So, right.
Kettering has helped a lot too. I just want to be grateful to Kettering University
Yes.
for helping all of
Was
this.
becoming a professor a good choice?
I wouldn't trade it for any other profession. It's always learning. It's also human relationship, and there is a lot of rest. You take the summer off.
3 months off.
There you go.
Definitely. Do you have any questions, Dina?
I don't.
That was such a good talk.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for
Lisa.
tuning in, guys. We will see you with somebody else next week. I won't be here, but the show continues. Thank you so much for listening. Oh, man. That was good.
That was good.
Let me end the Facebook Live, and then we'll say goodbye.